This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, it's Tuesday, 28 July, year of Lord 2026. On cue, Zelensky departs and Netanyahu arrives. Neil McCabe is at the White House. Neil, there's not a lot of pomp and circumstance associated with these. In fact, there's not a lot of any media coverage at all, the comings and goings. Am I correct on that?
Right. Obviously, there's the local media from Ukraine and Russia and Israel and then those kinds of media outlets. But we're not getting the big pop that you would expect from a head of state or head of government visit. I think a lot of the action is down the street at the Capitol.
Well, a lot of the pomp and circumstance, but this is 10x more important what's happening at the Capitol. It's one of the reasons we're covering it. Tee me up. Netanyahu here today. He wanted this meeting in the worst possible way. The president did not want to give him another meeting, just did not want to do it. The president's got, he's chewing on a lot of things. I think he feels that he's been given a lot of misinformation about this entire thing, and some of that has come directly from Netanyahu and the Mossad. This meeting may be a lot tougher than the first. I mean, the president's been singing the high hosannas of the Ukrainian military operation and give the devil its due. We're very anti-Zelensky. We're anti the Ukrainian war. We think it's a mess, as it has been, a big drain on American resources, as this show said years ago at the very start of it. But the toughness of the Ukrainian people, I mean, they punch way above their weight. And I think this has put a lie to the fact that this whole NATO situation with Russia and going across the North German plain to take over France and the Low Countries shows you how ridiculous that has been. But Netanyahu, you couldn't get a more serious moment, because the president has actually said, hey, I don't know if the MOU can work, but what I want to do is at least a stand down for right now to figure out who we're negotiating with and try to get some at least remedy for the Strait of Hormuz. Your thoughts, Neil McCabe?
First thing is unity of command. And, we've struggled sometimes with President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Are they making decisions? Are they working at the same purposes? Is there unity command? Obviously, unity command is a huge problem on the Iranian side, because we can't find anyone who can cut a deal and make it stick. The Prime Minister Netanyahu today is going to make the case that the president is making too many concessions. He's being too soft. He's giving away too much, considering what's been sacrificed. He's also going to share with the president fresh intelligence and analysis that's going to sort of give him like what's going on now, but also sort of refute some of the blowback that the president has been hearing from the intel community. And the prime minister's office put out a statement saying that the prime minister's goal was to win the war and forge a lasting peace. Steve.
Okay, Neil, you hang right there, and this is all about ramping this up, so it'll be quite interesting what happens today. Then the president's going to go to National Cathedral. I think he's going to say some appropriate remarks at the funeral of Lindsey Graham. Not saying it's a eulogy, but I think the president will give remarks there at 2 o'clock. Vice President Vance taking the duty up on Capitol Hill at this ceremony they're having at the Senate. Jake Seawolf from My Patriot Supply joins us. Jake, I asked you to come on because there's a heat dome over the Midwest or the upper plains, and man, this thing is brutal. What's a heat dome, and how can My Patriot Supply help out patriots do a workaround on this thing?
Absolutely. So a heat dome is a weather pattern. Don't mind me, I'm looking at my notes on this so I don't Joe Biden this. But a heat dome is a weather pattern where high pressure mass air traps heat in a place, often driven by the behavior of a jet stream, and it's very slow to dissipate. So heats up slow, and then it dissolves very slowly as well. So you guys are just being stuck in like this ballistic bubble with no clouds, no nothing, and it's just like sitting in an oven, and it sucks. Even here in Salt Lake, it was 109 degrees the other day, and we're not even considered in the heat dome. So the people in Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Oklahoma, and Missouri, and anyone else that I might have forgotten there, good luck, guys. Like, stay alive. People are dying in Europe because of heat.
Yeah, no, but this is extraordinary because the heat is at a very high level, and it doesn't seem to be moving out. Correct. So
no,
what is My Patriot Supply?
15.
Yeah, it's brutal. Give us a solution.
Sorry to interrupt. Absolutely.
Give us a solution.
So we're looking at the first thing is, I mean, if your guys' power is going out, gas pumps, everything, like you're not going to get fuel for your gas generators at all. Our big solution is we sell Grid Doctor solar generators. You guys, as long as the sun's shining, which it is even in the heat dome, you're going to have power. So you guys can keep some kind of cooling going on, your refrigerator's running and everything like that. Secondly, if your fridge does go out, do you even have food that's ready to go? Is the grocery stores even selling food because the power's out? Because that's the first thing that goes with grocery stores, whether people buy in panic or their freezers give out and all their food goes bad. Now they're not going to sell it to you. So that's why we have our 6-month food supply kit on hand. Like, make sure you guys are stocked up. Our kits don't need to be refrigerated. Our solar generators, they run off the sun. So who cares, right? Let the gas pumps go out. But you either have it before the outage, you're standing in the same line as every man who thought about it and didn't move. So if you guys want to look like the little welfare guy sitting in line waiting for Uncle Sam to give you a handout that he's not prepared for, and I know everyone watching this show loves FEMA. That's a total joke, by the way. MyPatriotSupply.com. We have blackout readiness, and everything is going live right now.
Hold it. You're like the president. You're like the president at the White House correspondent that is. We got it's a joke. Whether it lands or not, let the audience decide. You don't have to tell us. Yeah. Jake, you tee it up perfectly, and then that's a joke. We got it. Jake, you've got a special landing page just for the War and Posse. Where do people go? You've got the special on the 6-month food supply. You now have the Grid Doctor. I want people to immerse themselves, talk to your consultants, because this is a perfect example in the modern world why this is just not preparation anymore. This is common sense. The common sense company is My Patriot Supply. You got to think these things through. You've set up a special landing page just for us. Where do people go?
Preparewithbannon.com. So as long as you know Steve Bannon's name, which you all do, preparewithbannon.com. Phone number is right at the top, 866-229-0927. The special there with our 6-month kit. But call in, ask us what else we can do for you. If you guys need the generators, you guys need food, you guys need water and filtration, we have it all, and we're here for you. Best part about it is the people you're calling are in the room next to me. These are Americans right here in Utah. You're not calling India or Pakistan or whatever crap they want to sell you on. You're calling real, actual Americans that are here with the products. They're here with me, and we're going to get you hooked up. So
even something when the 229-0927.
You got it.
0927. And Prepare with Bannon. Go there right now. Preparewithbannon.com. So when things like the heat dome come up, just don't sit there and figure you got to do it by yourself. If you need something or think there may be some relief, make sure you contact the Common Sense Company, My Patriot Supply. Jake, thank you so much for being on here, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Bannon.
And appreciate My Patriot Supply. This is why they're the leaders in the industry. Do I have Nick yet? So Nick, Prime Minister Netanyahu just arrived. This is obviously he's been, and this is all the reporting from the White House that they have not denied. He's been pushing for this meeting for weeks. The president's he's kind of sullen about this, right? He's not in a great mood because he feels, I think that's pretty obvious, he feels like he hasn't been getting the best information on this. Talk to me. Let's go back to that the Israelis, I think, decided that whether it was, in their mind, it was a professional effort on TikTok and Instagram to put up the worst elements of the Gaza conflict. To other people, they said, hey, the Gaza conflict was bad enough. All you had to do was put the video up and you turn it. But they saw definitely a big, however it was done, either Qatar and people putting cash up and getting influencers and getting this footage up, or it was just a natural evolutionary thing. The bottom line was there was definitely a shift in American public opinion, particularly among younger people, towards Israel as America's quote unquote greatest ally. And the Israelis decided at a point in time that they had to counter this, and they came up with, as you reported, huge underwritings for what essentially are foreign agents, American citizens doing the bidding of Israel, right, in the United States to try to change the attitudes of the American people. Do you believe that will come up today in the Oval Office? I mean, give us your perspective of what's going to take place in the Oval Office today, particularly since Israel is leaning into the fact that American popular opinion is very important, particularly the fact that Netanyahu has a make or break election coming up in October.
It's going to be one of the testier meetings between the two of them for sure. I mean, this is the 7th time that Netanyahu has come to visit Trump in Washington, and it comes at a time in which the two of them are not talking as much. The two of them were very much in lockstep just a few months ago at the outset of the Iran war. But as you said, if Trump feels as though this, he's rightly, I think, pulled back in large part. He's now questioning a lot of the assumptions, and Netanyahu, I think, is aware that they are talking starting at the highest level about some of these influence operations. I mean, J.D. Vance was on Joe Rogan not too long ago talking about how influencers are being paid on behalf of Israel. I don't know if it's going to come up in the meeting or not. A lot of these different influence operations, but I think Trump is obviously very aware that the public and conservatives and young conservatives in particular have started to question a lot of these assumptions about the U.S.-Israel relationship.
You've also at Quincy, you've done you got an axe to grind against Israel. You've also done some of the most leading research into Qatar and the Gulf Emirates doing the same thing. I think the question for the American people is that we want our sovereignty. If we want to ally with Israel for a certain thing, we should do it. If we determine there should be bases all over the Middle East, and the young people that just died the other day, a lot of them were up in Jordan, and people don't even realize we got bases in Jordan. We still have bases in Iraq. If we have that, if we're going after biolabs in trying to get rid of the biolabs with the Russians in Ukraine, or if we're arming Ukraine, the American people, in the common sense, our history shows in World War II, World War I, the Civil War, you give the American people information, and eventually they're going to come to the right decision. I believe when I talk to people, they think they're being gamed every which way. Right? So we got a minute here when holding through the break. It's just a basic question. For the sovereignty of this country, for America first, how can we make our own decisions if we're Natalie's coming on here in a minute with the whole program of United Front to pay for journalists to go to China to come back and sing the high hosannas of China. You got China, you got Israel, you got the Gulf Emirates. They're pouring cash in here to change American opinion. Give me 30 seconds of that. I'll go to break and bring you back.
I think that Americans largely are waking up to this reality. I mean, foreign influence has been a reality of American life since the founding. But I think by and large, a lot of these efforts are actually not that they're even ineffective, but that they're in some cases even counterproductive. I mean, this is something that I heard time and time again as I was interviewing people, experts on communications and Hasbara efforts for this report, is they would say, like, they run the course of actually backfiring and people turning against Israel even more because they feel as though they're being lied to in a lot of cases. In fact, because they're trying to spin this narrative.
Hang on for 1 second. I'm going to come back to Nick Cleveland-Stout of the Quincy Institute. Natalie Winter's going to join us. Matt Boyle from Breitbart. All of it. I believe the Prime Minister is actually in the Oval with the President. Zelensky's meeting is finished. We're going to get reports from Neil McCabe, who's at the White House. Short break. Back in a moment.
woman is known to the world. Look closely. Do you recognize her? Listen to her story, then condemn her, if you can.
Ashamed? Oh, I'm not ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's true there were men in my life before Charles. I admit it. I made mistakes. I was young. I was stupid. I believed in men and their promises. But Charles knew about me before he took me into the house.
She encouraged you. Why, it was part of our plan to play upon your vanity. And she's quite capable of declaring you the father of our child.
Francis, control yourself.
As long as I live, I shall be your wife.
We've been living in a dream. And now we are faced with the truth. How ugly it is. How terribly ugly.
Here moves drama the screen has seldom known. A daring, intimate story of a glorious woman fighting the irresistible power of love. With lovely Vivian Lee in a worthy challenge to her Academy Award-winning role as Scarlett O'Hara. Laurence Olivier.
Dawn. Come back.
Okay, that film, That Hamilton Woman, was shown to Ship's Company, and I believe President Roosevelt, by Winston Churchill when they met on the USS Augustus, I think it was. Also, Churchill showed that film, I think, over 200 times at Chartwell, his country estate, during the Second World War. There was going to be an investigation, a congressional investigation of that film and why the British made it and British intelligence was involved with it to basically get America to come into World War II in support of Great Britain in 1940 and 41. That was the film that was made after Gone with the Wind, with Vivian Lee as Lady Hamilton and Sir Laurence Olivier as Nelson. In the whole, if you watch the film, it's a very moving film about a little country, England, standing up to Napoleon, trying to take over continental Europe. It was obviously Britain versus Churchill versus Hitler. But British intelligence, who put the money up for it, how it was distributed, how it was shown to American leaders, became an investigation. My point of what Nick just said. People have been trying to influence the United States for many, many decades, hundreds of years, to do their bidding. Not to say that we shouldn't have come into World War II after Pearl Harbor. It was pretty obvious what had to happen. But people were pushing this in the years before Pearl Harbor, and they were doing it in a very sophisticated way with a lot of money. Nick, you're absolutely correct. People have been trying to influence the United States, and it's not disclosed. Here's my point. Your investigation of these influencers with Israel putting up the money and Salem Radio and Pascal registered as a foreign agent, people doing this for Qatar or whatever. When you talk about foreign registration, does the law incorporate influencers? Isn't just agents like Pascal have to register and they have to show where they're distributing the money? But is there any regulation at all that shows that the power of the social media influencers have to register or have to say where they're getting their money from, sir?
FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, it was created in the first half of the 20th century. It's a very old law, and it has been amended and updated very, very few times. And so you talk to a lot of people, they'll say, this law needs to be updated. There needs to be more guidance for how to deal with influence in the digital age. And I definitely count myself in that camp. So I think that the Department of Justice, the FARA unit, needs to come out and give more advice, instruction on what needs to be disclosed and what doesn't, because a lot of this falls into a gray area right now, and people that don't want to disclose are not going to.
But
technically,
you would agree, hang on. You would agree that we have two things. Number one, what should be disclosed, who should do it, but the other is the enforcement. I mean, DOJ. There's not a super. If you work for President Trump, like Manafort or people like that, they went after you, right? Or Mike Flynn or people like this. But there's not a general enforcement of we're being inundated, we're being swamped. Natalie's going to come on in a second with the second part of a story she's been working on for 5 years, and there's no action been taken on the Chinese Communist Party at the highest levels of media, had been buying people off. no fair enforcement. You got everything that's happening with the Gulf Emirates. They're putting hundreds of millions. Qatar's open about they've put $800 million in to shift American opinion, and now you got the Israelis that realize, hey, we're on our back foot. We got to do this. We're going to sign people up, and Pascal admits it. But it seems like DOJ, number one, the law's not been updated, but more importantly, even than that, the little bit we got, it ain't being enforced, and people don't fear it, sir.
That's exactly right. And when I first published the story about influencers being paid by Israel, I also reached out. I sent a letter to the Department of Justice and asked, hey, what's the deal with this? Are you going to enforce the law in this case? We have this firm is telling us, it's disclosing to you that there are influencers who are being paid by Israel, and you aren't going to ask who the influencers themselves are. If you're being paid on behalf of a foreign government to influence American public life, that should be disclosed. The American public should know, what posts are being paid for and what aren't. It's very basic, understanding of just the flow of information. The same way corporate sponsors disclose that their ads, or if an influencer has a partnership with a certain brand, they'll disclose that. We need that if we have that for corporations, we need that for foreign governments.
Nick, where do people go to get all your reports on this, all of them, because it's very powerful and changes? You can tell already the heat that's being applied to this. There's going to be more enforcement, but there also has to be, I think, the influencers. If you're taking money, or even if you have an intermediate like Pascal who's farming it out, dealing it out, you're going to have to somehow disclose, and not, like you said yesterday on some website, on the 10th page at the bottom. It's got to be a real disclosure. So then the American people can weigh and measure themselves what they're being told. So where do they go to get all your reporting on this?
You can follow me on Twitter or X at Nick_Cleveland_S. You can also follow the Quincy Institute's work, quincyinst.org, and check out my new report about Israeli influence called The Eighth Front.
Amazing. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on.
Make sure you go and check it out today. Natalie Winters. Natalie, I think that there was more disclosure. So here we have Zelensky in the Oval. We've got Netanyahu in the Oval. They're talking about merging the war. They've got different influencers hitting on both sides. You're reporting, and you're going to give us more about the Chinese Communist Party doing. I think it's one of the reasons there's not a bigger firestorm right now, given the exposures of what Bill Pulte and John Solomon have disclosed about the Chinese Communist Party involvement here. There's not a bigger firestorm about why are we even having a meeting in late September with Xi coming over here. That actually, when you add it all up, Israel, the Gulf, Zelensky, they're super important what they're trying to do to us, but it's second tier given the main thing, as Captain Fennell says, the existential threat that is the Chinese Communist Party. We're now for part 2 of yours, ma'am. Can you walk us through it?
Well, Steve, if I could just add, if they do want to bury it on the 10th page on the FARA website, I will still find it. And the War Room Posse will be all over it. But this story that we're publishing is showing you just how vast this United Front Work Department influence network is in the United States. So QSEF, the group that I always talk about, that was the list of names we exposed yesterday, is just one of dozens of these groups. There's actually over 250 historic and current registered Chinese foreign agents in the United States, whether they're working explicitly for the government or a group like QSEF. This is a group that I just want to show you how horizontally and vertically integrated this influence operation is. Obviously, you have QSEF really working, cradle to grave, the entire political influence system, from congressional staffers to Congress to the Congressional Black Caucus to academic types to think tankers, even to former IC members. Even a former director of the CIA was actually involved with a QSEF joint program. Dennis Wilder is his name. I'm going to publish that story later, but he was actually one of the foremost voices saying that President Trump discussing the 2020 election claims around Chinese interference was bogus. It's interesting how there's always that nexus there. But that's just one group, right? And Steve, when you talk so much about the importance for disclosures, I think the best way to actually go after this is not even going after the foreign governments themselves. It's to go after the lobbying firms that are so often arranging these contacts. And Steve, I think too, to link this to what, Pulte declassified, that thing that he has on his Twitter that you've been talking about, you can see in the final sentence, the paragraph after they list the type of narratives that they're trying to project, which really confirms, I think, one of the key theories we've had here on War Room. China was more content just influencing narratives around their economic development in like the 2010s. Now they're actively trying to undermine the U.S. political discourse, frankly, the United States as a whole. But he explicitly calls out how China has what I call these forward deployed assets, right? These pseudo-intellectuals. He distinguishes them, the intel community does, as mainstream media figures and then also influencers. But it's this concept of a borrowed boat strategy. And Steve, that's precisely why they're so opposed to the disclosures on this, right? If you know they're being paid by a foreign government, this concept of the borrowed boat where they try to look American even though they're not, it doesn't really work. So this new group is called the Committee of 100. This group has been praised by Xi Jinping as a friendly organization. I actually obtained a leaked internal document from them. I guess their cybersecurity is not as strong as they probably hope it is, and they can go and delete it. It's all been archived. But here you can actually see them bragging about how they changed the perceptions of journalists. There's direct quotes, we'll read it, and talking about the price of these trips at just $60,000 to try to get these, American sellout journalists. There's a wide variety of names: David Brooks, David Ignatius. We'll read them after the break. But this is just one of many organizations that's doing this kind of stuff, and just one of many industries.
Hang on for 1 second. We'll take a short commercial break. Take your phone out, text Bannon at 989898. Now more than ever, particularly with the chip meltdown, took down Korea, some of the biggest companies, I think by 10% at one time. Find out all about it. 989898. That's Bannon 989898. You can put you directly in touch with Birch Gold. Back in a moment.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So, Natalie, I want to go through a couple more names now. The first part of this went viral. And by the way, this is a story you've been working on diligently for 5 years, exposing more of it. But now it's so overwhelming, and particularly its moment has come since issue is now before the American people. I'm announced on Thursday, you're going to take the 5 o'clock hour, and you're going to break it down for an entire hour and kind of do a special on this. But before you leave us, just a couple, because I'm kind of shocked by the name, the how big the names are and how big the media institutions that they represent in their work is platformed. And when you look at this, you just go, I don't know how America punches back, because this is the march through the institutions, which the Chinese Communist Party clearly control in some manner, ma'am.
Well, I would maybe start with punishing these people for being traitors on behalf of a foreign government, let alone the Chinese Communist Party. This story is, I think, extra interesting on top of yesterday's, because I actually got the internal document where they're talking about the price of the trips, and they're talking about, you can see the internal kind of commentary about how they're celebrating that they literally changed these people's opinions about China. One quote from a CCP academic who helped run the tour was, quote, "You made the change." They were praising all the Chinese Communist Party members they met with, saying that they had changed their coverage. They have a whole paper talking about the articles that these people published. They were running polling on these people, and they concluded that 70% of these American journalists, they call them opinion leaders, who visited China, had, quote, improved opinions of the country afterward. A senior Financial Times editor in one of the little blurbs said that he will never think or write about China again without reflecting on the trip. A radio host said it changed his perception of China in, quote, 100 ways. The cost for just one delegation in 2012, it's unclear if it's per person or the whole thing, was $60,000. I don't think it costs $60,000 to fly someone to China and put them up in a hotel. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more. But that individual who was part of that trip, the articles that they praised from him were articles titled, quote, "Why China and the U.S. Can Be Capitalist Comrades." Of course, all these people oppose tariffs. Literally one of them, and I quote, that Xi Jinping is the reasonable adult in President Trump's trade war, and that being scared about Beijing, according to David Ignatius, is, quote, scare talk, and that decoupling could, quote, backfire. Some of these names are Jill Abramson, the managing editor at the New York Times, David Brooks, how about that, columnist at the New York Times, Juan Williams, senior political analyst at NPR, David Ignatius, associate editor and columnist, The Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, columnist and associate editor, The Washington Post. I like to asterisk the ones that sometimes make it into your cold opens because there's a lot of them. Travis Smiley, host at PBS and PRI, Ruth Marcus, columnist, The Washington Post, Howard Feynman, editorial director, The Huffington Post. This is quite a big one. John Harris, the editor-in-chief at Politico and the actual co-founder. Fred Hyatt, editorial page editor and columnist, The Washington Post. Clarence Page, Chicago Tribune. Brian Lehrer, host at WNYC. Rana Furhar, deputy editor at Newsweek. Clive Crook, senior editor of The Atlantic. Bloomberg View columnist. John Gapper, associate editor and columnist, Financial Times. Winnie O'Kelly, deputy business editor at the New York Times. Nicholas Goldberg, editor of the editorial pages, LA Times. Jonathan Tepperman, managing editor, Foreign Affairs. Gary Silverman, U.S. News editor and deputy managing editor, Financial Times. Charles Cook, of the publisher of the Cook Political Report. Henry Finder, the editorial director of The New Yorker. John Byrne, executive editor, Business Week. Adam Kushner, executive editor, National Journal. Rika Basu, columnist, Des Moines Register. Brian Gallagher, editorial page editor, USA Today. And Steve, can I just add one thing? For all these names that I have now said, we're probably over 50, including yesterday and today. No defamation lawsuits here. Actually, no inbound or people even saying that I'm wrong. Now, I think all these people they want to avoid discovery at any cost. But it's quite telling. I've actually only seen one journalist engage with it, and their response was, well, I told people I went to China. I wasn't hiding it. I'm like, wow, that's really a strong rebuttal if I've ever heard one. And you know what, Steve, if I may just add too, there's a lot of, pushback from the Wu Mao Chinese bots saying, well, this is just a trip to China. It's just cultural exchange. It's not. The war has started. This is information warfare. But might I also add that even if it were, there is no such thing, frankly, as mutual coexistence, let alone friendly collaboration with the Chinese Communist Party. And people who follow that ideological strain are people like Anthony Fauci and the entire scientific community that gave us a bioweapon known as COVID-19. So these journalists should not be doing that. These are pseudo-intellectuals. These are people who have lectured us that we're destroying democracy. Meanwhile, they're literally pumping Chinese propaganda, refusing to disclose it, and then calling us crazy for daring to talk about it. Dare I say that sounds a little bit like the story about the origins of COVID.
No, Natalie, the depressing thing about that's a who's who of American journalism, quote unquote, and American journalistic and media institutions, what you name there, both at the regional level and the national level. The Chinese Communist Party, our enemies, the enemies of this republic are very, very, very smart. And unrestricted warfare is the way that they believe they're going to take down the United States of America. And guess what? Look at our cities. Look at Mandami. Look at Minneapolis. Look at Chicago. Look at Los Angeles. You tell me who's winning right now. They control the cities, and we cannot send any ICE officers in there for mass deportation. We're not even talking about mass deportations. In fact, we started the show with the second guest that said that the Haitians, TPS is finished last night for the Haitians, Natalie, and guess what? They're still in Springfield, Ohio, and they don't look like they're going to leave. Natalie, where do people go to read this report? I want everybody to push it out. The audience, you got to be force multipliers in this. This is the existential threat to this nation, the Chinese Communist Party. They have deeply infiltrated the media ecosystem in the United States of America in a victory of their side for narrative warfare. Where do they go, Natalie?
Yes, I'll keep naming names. You just got to subscribe. It's free. You can go to Natalie G. Winters on X. I'm going to put this thread up. Make sure you're following, put notifications on to get these names. And then it's substack.nataliegwinters.com where you can read all these stories in full and I guess make yourself immune to CCP propaganda. Thank you, Steve, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Natalie, just real quick, a wellness check. You're not suicidal?
No, and I still hate the CCP even more. I actually went to QSEF headquarters when I was in Hong Kong a bit ago. Let's just say we're watching them too. So
we got the hairy eyeball on them. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. See you Thursday at 5. Natalie will be here to break it down for an entire hour. Matt Boyle. Boyle, I was going to have him for other things, but I got to ask you, got Zelensky in the morning, and you got right after him, you get Netanyahu. Right now, they're trying to make an argument, I believe, that the Caspian Sea is a linchpin to combine these two parts of the kinetic part of the Third World War. Our theory of the case here in the war room, if we do this, folks, take your number 2 pencil down and circle 20 years from now, because we'll be in this conflict for 20 years. Your thoughts, Matt Boyle?
Yeah, I agree with your analysis there, Steve, but I would also say I don't know if they are not already connected, right? Like, so, I mean, frankly, it is a battle for Western civilization against, rising new Axis powers. You were just talking about the Chinese Communist Party. They're the center of it, right? Like, but the Russians are not great actors. They're like a junior partner to China mostly. The Secretary of State, Rubio, has made hang on.
Yeah. I got it, but if we could look, we had a shot in the first administration, and the deep state doesn't want that to happen. When we talk about Western civilization, what's more Western civilization? The Russian part of like St. Petersburg and their Orthodox Church, the classic Russian religion, and I realize the KGB are bad actors, or what's going on in France and in the UK, where they've basically surrendered to the Islamic invasion, sir.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong on all of that stuff, right? Like, so, I mean, and by the way, this is why I keep going to Greece, right? Like, because the Greeks inherently understand it because they lived for 400 years under Islamic occupation during the Ottoman Empire, which, by the way, we see the Turks trying to recreate every day, right? Like, and so this is what they're trying to do by getting the F-35 program, getting back into that, and so on and so forth. And there's big debates over territory and the waters and certain borders and whatnot between the Turks and the Greeks. But the fact is that no, you're not wrong. Like all of that is the case. But the fact is that the United States needs to lead us out of this mess. We are seeing apparently the Ukrainians fired at several Iranian ships in the as you mentioned there, the Caspian Sea, and there's other things that would suggest some linkages between the two, which is the Russians apparently are giving the Iranians
what lessons you spend a lot of time in Greece. You're very in the Eastern Mediterranean. You've become kind of an expert in a big name. What lessons? What do the Greeks tell us? Because they fought the Persians for 1,000 years, 1,500 years, right?
They're still fighting.
And when they were a democracy and still fighting, what lessons do they have to teach us about how you take on the Persians?
Well, first and foremost, you don't want to get drawn into a long, prolonged conflict, right? Like that is the one of the things that I think would really hinder Western civilization. So that is a warning sign, right? Like here, what we have to do is that's the case. But the second thing is, I think, again, when we're talking about the threats of radical Islam and so on and so forth, you can't give them control over anything, basically, right? Like, and this is the issue that our friends over further western parts of Europe, from even Italy, but more so, as you mentioned, France and the United Kingdom and Germany. We just saw the horrific attack in Germany after where an Islamic radical stabbed and apparently drove a car into LGBTQ parade or something. The fact is that once you start giving them any semblances of control, the two systems are totally incompatible. The West and democracy, freedom, etc., and radical Islam. And similar type of a situation with regard to the total control we see out of the Chinese Communist Party, which is what makes the communists natural allies with the radical Islamists. And that's the case. Like, I mean, that is the biggest thing here, I think, that we need to be very wary of with regard to the Turks. Erdogan is particularly close with Xi Jinping. He's given the Chinese total control over Turkish telecommunications and access to everything there. That is particularly dangerous. Why would we give them the best weapons in the world?
I'm going to go to break. Yeah. Hang on a second. But is President Trump have a closer relationship in the region than Erdogan?
He's very good friends with him, but very good personal friends with him. But that being said, you see a similar type of approach with Trump and Xi and Trump and Putin. But I also think that President Trump deeply understands the threats from all three in a very serious way. So but he's what's the point of going over there and then just being a total bore when you're there, right? Like, you go be nice, shake hands, smile, whatever, be a good guest and be a good host, but understand who you're dealing with. And I think that's the case with President Trump.
Hang on one second. I'm going to hold you. We got to come back and talk about the Senate. Obviously, things are going up at Capitol Hill today in memoriam for Lindsey Graham. Rickards, Jim Rickards, one of the great contributors here. Strategic Intelligence, he's got a special offer for you. $17.76, right? Go to, Rickards Intel. He's got a special landing page for us. RickardsIntel.com. You get the flagship Strategic Intelligence for 3 months for $17.76. If you don't love it, at the end of 3 months, he'll give you your money back. This is no risk. Jim Rickards, Strategic Intelligence. Go to RickardsIntel.com to sign up today. Matt Boyle of Breitbart on the other side.
Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Chapter, the data company that specializes in Medicare, has saved War Room Posse members over $1 million already. 845 War Room, a direct line just for the War Room Posse, no obligation, totally free on consultations. We spent yesterday with the company. We're going to start giving you some data later in the week. Just unbelievable, the response of the War Room Posse and the money saved, and most importantly, the optimum. You get into the optimum plan for you. It's quite complicated. That's why you need a data-driven company. 845 War Room. Also, Scott Bessent, he's head of the IRS. We had the IRS CEO on the other day, but he's got a mandate from President Trump, close the gap on these deficits. The way to do it, if you owe the IRS money, they want theirs. Now, the key is to find out what you actually owe. 866-513-5516. Check it out. It's a hotline just for the War Room. No obligation, totally free discovery call. Normally costs you hundreds or up to thousands of dollars. It's totally free. They can tell you what you actually owe to the IRS, but you got to make the call. 866-513-5516. Remember, if you've got a letter from the IRS, you can't put it in a drawer. The fees and penalties just keep metastasizing. So make sure you take care of it and take care of it today. 866-513-5516. Neil McCabe's at the White House. We have a readout from Zelensky. What do you got for us, Neil?
Yes, Steve, this just came out from President Zelensky. He put out the statement. First, he expressed his condolences for the passing of Senator Graham. Of course, that's why he's here today. But more importantly, what he said. We discussed with the president the licenses for the production of interceptors for the Patriots. We also talked about diplomacy. It is important to intensify the diplomatic process. Our teams will agree on the details of the further communications. Grateful to the United States for its strong support. And I think the key takeaway there is that July 8th, President Trump agreed to let the Ukrainians build their own Patriot missiles. The holdup is that Raytheon wants to negotiate a co-production, or they want to somehow participate in the revenues from that intellectual property. And that's where the negotiations are now. And that was why Zelensky went to meet with the president today to get those Patriots.
Neil, you stick around. You're going to be maybe potentially go to the National Cathedral. We'll figure all that out. It's a packed afternoon at the White House at the National Cathedral, the funeral for Senator Lindsey Graham. Matt Boyle, Patriots, Ukraine. You're going back over to the region on this weekend, correct? Are you going back to the region?
I'm going back to Greece. I'll be there for a couple weeks, and I might have some other things going on while I'm over there, so we'll see. But I should be getting some more. I've gotten to know one of the things you kind of mentioned this in the last segment there that I think is important to understand about this region of the world is just how influential the Orthodox Church is. Both Russia and Ukraine are Orthodox countries. There are Orthodox Christians all throughout Eastern Europe, all throughout the Balkans, down into Greece, and then even over into the Middle East. And I think that understanding the different, the Orthodox world, and how it's different than the Catholics, and so on and so forth. I'm a Catholic personally, but it's I've had great reception and made great contacts throughout the Orthodox Christian world, and that's part of the reason why I keep going back. I keep meeting different faith leaders and whatnot. There's some really amazing stories there that I'm working on that are very long term. But it's understanding that stuff will really help put in context the things that are happening in Ukraine and in the Middle East.
We'll get you live there next week while you're in the region. Last thing, and I realize we're going for now, but give me a minute or two on the the Senate bill as well as anybody. President Trump came in last night and said, "Hey, look, I don't want any recess until the Save America Act is passed, on my desk for signature, and executed. You're not going anywhere." Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, well, I saw Thune's response to that too. He came out and said, "Well, the White House knows that there are not enough Republican votes to lift the filibuster." I believe Thune is telling the truth about that. I've told you this before. I know the vote totals is somewhere in the low 20s is where they actually are with regard to that. What I think the mistake that Thune is making here is keeping that from the public and hiding behind the Senate procedure rather than having a big public debate about this. What they should do is they should come out, and if senators want to defend the filibuster, and a lot of them that are supportive of it have a lot of reasons that they're in favor of it. The biggest thing is that they're afraid that if and when the Democrats take the Senate back, that they're going to jam through all this radical stuff. Now, Trump's argument is the Democrats are going to get rid of it anyway, which is probably true. But that being said, what Thune should do is encourage a public whip count, right? So let's see where each of the 53 Republican senators are when it comes to lifting the filibuster. Let's have a vote whip count publicly. Let's have a vote on it in the Senate, so on and so forth. And then let's have a debate about it. And because if you have that debate, then the whole debate is about how bad the radical left is. It'll reunify, I think, the Republicans and conservatives, because the people that are pro-filibuster are going to be arguing how bad the radical left is and how they can't be trusted with power. And the people that are anti-filibuster that want to get rid of it are going to be arguing that we have to get rid of it because we have to save our election system because of how bad the radical left is, right? So I think what Thune should do is, in the interest of transparency and bringing the American public into this discussion rather than hiding behind these weird Senate rules, is put out in public a list of where all 53 Senate Republicans are on this. They know what it is, and they could just call a vote on it today, right? Like they could call a vote on it or tee it up for this week sometime, where they could have a vote on lifting the filibuster. Then you have a whip count of where the senators are on it, and then have a public debate about it. And I think a public debate would be a very healthy thing.
Matt, where do people go to get all your writings and particularly follow you on your travels back to the region?
Yeah, Breitbart.com. I'm also on X, Twitter at mboyle1, and on True Social at Real Matt Boyle.
Make sure you keep us in the loop, brother, as you head back over. Thank you, sir. Matt Boyle, national political editor for Breitbart. Break the grip of big pharma on your life. Allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. Code Bannon10. You get 10% off. Most importantly, talk to Michael Kunstler and his team of why they're pharmacists, they're trained medical professionals. I think they have 600 medications already, adding more. Break the stranglehold of the big pharmaceutical companies and the drugstore chains on you. Allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. Bannon10 for 10% off. Also, HomeTitleLock.com. You get a promo code Steve. Free 14-day trial on the $1 million triple lock protection. Now with artificial intelligence and cyber, you need to talk to Natalie Dominguez and the team. 90% of your net worth tied up in your title. Check it out today. HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code Steve. Charlie Crook Show is next. Poso after that. President's going to be the National Cathedral Day. We're back at 5 p.m. for the special about Sam Faddis. See you then.